Kirk Hammett just released something that kinda outrages me. And I'm usually trying to be a really calm guy, but we definitely have to talk about the Guitar World article, the Guitar World interview with Kirk Hammett. Because there's a lot of stuff in there where we can learn from about music and guitar solos. So let's check out this article. Yay! As someone who loves the art of guitar solo, we have to deal a lot with certain comments like, you should play something that is appropriate for the song, you should play in the moment, you just want to show off and say, look what I can do. I can do this as well, but I don't want to sound like an exercise. It maybe sounds hard, but it's actually really easy. And what you are playing is just like sports or the Olympics. You don't play from the heart. So often I have to deal with these kind of bullshit, and a lot of players out there too. And I get really angry when people are saying something like this, because it's super easy to downgrade a certain style or a certain approach on the instrument by saying those things. And it's too easy for me. And now Kirk is doing it. A man who is influencing a lot of people, saying this in Guitar World, a magazine who has an extreme reach, and I have to stand against this bullshit. I'm going to go through this article, it's not the full interview, with you now here together, and hear me out, watch this video to the end, because this is a really important message for me to all the people out there who are loving the art and the beauty of well-crafted guitar music. So in the article, in the interview, maybe somebody was asking Kirk about the video which is called Why Everyone Hates the Solo in Metallica's new song by Brandon Dion. This is a really good video where he showcased objectively what's bad with the solo of Kirk and the single that was released during the time called Luxy Turner, and that there are even some improved versions, for example from Bradley Hall, which is a really good video, but they all have a good point on Kirk. It's time to change at least a bit. First he's saying, yeah, my fucking friends down the street could probably play a better solo than Luxy Turner, but what's the point? Hammett ridiculous the idea that his solo on Luxy Turner is bad because it isn't hard to play. And there's the first misinformation here, saying that there's a group of people out there, a group of snobs out there who are saying like, oh, it's not hard to play, so it's bad. I have never really met those people, and I've taught a lot of guitar players out there. I have met a lot of guitar players in my community, and to be honest, maybe one or two, but it's really easy to say that there's a group of people out there who are judging you because your solo is not hard to play. I don't know. All the guitar players that I know, for them, they don't care if a solo is hard or easy to play as long as it is well crafted. And here's the first point, these are two different things. Something that is played hard and something that is good. You cannot set them in relation together, because one thing does not necessarily has to do with something else. But it is easy to say in that way to justify the bullshit that you are playing. When with you I don't mean you the viewer, maybe only one viewer, and that is hopefully Kirk. So I'm directly speaking to Kirk here. For me, what's appropriate is playing for the song and playing in the moment. Is it really? I mean, in Brandon Dion's video, he really showcased how less effort Kirk is doing there to to tell a story. Saying in the moment is just an easy bullshit excuse for what you are doing. And just because something is in the moment, that does not necessarily mean that it is good. As I've mentioned in my last video, where I made a comparison about the old Kirk Hammett guitar solos and the new Kirk Hammett guitar solos, there I was saying that sometimes a solo needs time to develop. It needs to be composed like a song. When you want to do something that is appropriate to a song which maybe took time to develop and to compose, then the appropriate thing to do for the song is to also take your time with the solo and craft something well. And it's super easy, of course, to make something, really artsy and say, oh, it's just in the moment, and what I was playing was improvised, and I'm so full of art. There's so much art inside of me because I can do something out of this moment. No. This is extremely easy to say and to justify certain behaviors. So let's move on. This is the first lesson. Just because something is out of the moment does not necessarily mean that it is good. As I've said in my last video, the art of improvisation is a beautiful art. I loved it. I studied jazz guitar in university for 4 years, and I'm still not really good at improvisation. You know, being good in the art of improvising needs a lot of time and a lot of practice. And then again, he was going to the video from Brandon the Eon and saying, I was just laughing the whole time while he was watching the video. I could string together like 6 or 7 3-octave arpeggios and 60 notes, sit there every day and practice it and go, hey, look what I can do. But where I'm gonna put it, that won't work in any Metallica song. First of all, seriously? Sorry, but I don't believe that you can really do this. Maybe, when you're practicing it, yeah. But first you have to practice to do this. And then saying that when people are something technical, it's just there to be flashy and to show off and all these kind of things. I think this is downgrading a lot of good crafting in the guitar scene. Of course, there are tons of solos out there where maybe a fast passage doesn't make really sense or whatnot. But I don't think that people are putting it in there in the first case because just to show off. And even if so, you always have to understand that there's still like an emotion behind it. The emotion could be, for example, like, hey, I've practiced this for months and months and months, and I'm really proud of it. Being proud of something is an emotion. I want to show this to you. I want to share this experience with you. I want to share this passion with you. And this is totally fine. There's an absolute right to have this in the music scene. And to be honest, I rather appreciate someone who's really taking his time and his work and his effort in crafting something maybe flashy, maybe a little bit show-offing, but I rather appreciate that than somebody who has no will and no effort to improve and just justify things by saying it's coming out of the moment. And to be honest, I believe that this worked in a Metallica song because it used to work on the 4 records that creates the DNA of Metallica. Then he's talking about arpeggios, and now it becomes really funny. Arpeggios, come on! In a guitar solo mapped out like a lot of people do 4 or 5 chords with a different arpeggio over each one, it sounds like an exercise. I don't want to listen to exercises and warm-ups every time I hear a song. Okay, now imagine the following situation. Somebody is playing a solo and the solo sounds like an exercise. Really like a warm-up, like just the thing that you described in this article. And when this person comes to you and was saying like, the solo sounds like this because it was out of the moment. It was coming from my heart. Would you, Kirk, then say, okay, totally fine, cool, I'm cool with that? Or would you rather say objectively that there's dynamic missing, that maybe somebody needs a little bit more variation, you know? Do you get the point? How stupid it is to justify certain behaviors on your instrument by saying it is coming out of the moment. You can criticize people in their solo. It's totally fine to make objective critique, like dynamic missing, variations missing, maybe the build-up of the tension is missing, all this kind of stuff. But you can have this critique with somebody who sounds like a warm-up or sounds just like an exercise, or is playing something that sounds just like an exercise or a warm-up. Or with somebody who is playing shitty bands and shitty blues licks over and over again and just changing his phrases and his motifs every 2 bars, like when he would write a solo after a recipe in a cookbook. Hammett will make an exception to that rule, but only for 3 people. The only guys out there who I think convincingly play arpeggios as a means of expression are Joe Satriani, interesting take, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Paul Gilbert. I mean, I love Joe Satriani, but I don't think that he's really famous for playing arpeggios, in my opinion. Yngwie, okay, Paul, okay, but I assume that you've stopped listening to guitar playing in '89. Because, come on. Okay, unscripted, I'm going to drop a lot of guitar players now who I believe that convincingly can play an arpeggio as a form of expression. Tony McAlpine, Vinnie Moore, Jason Becker, Marty Friedman, Michael Lee Firkin, Steve Vai, John Petrucci, Jeff Loomis, Marcus Volny. Let's go to the new generation. There we have Martin Miller, we have Tom Quayle, we have Max Oster, we have Guthrie Govan, we have Matteo Osato, we have Matteo Mancuso, I think it's his name, the guy who's only playing with the finger. You know him, great guitar player. Who we have? We have Nuno Bettencourt, we have Zach Wild, we have a lot of peoples out there. I would agree, or I would say that they can play an arpeggio with an expression behind it. Then he's talking about sweeping, and this is another thing, there I get the point a little bit. He's saying sweeping is incredibly easy, but it sounds incredibly hard there. I'm going to say something about this in a few seconds. But first, when it first came out in these late 70s, by the early 80s, sorry, everyone was doing it. By not doing it, you stood out. I get this a little bit, this point a little bit. I mean, it was a hype thing to do sweeping back in the 80s. I believe you can compare it a little bit with thumping, for example. 10 years ago in the early 2010s, there was a big hype of thumping after Tosin Abasi and Animals as Leaders got so famous. And that's totally cool. And I can understand that a hype can be a little bit annoying when everybody's doing it. But still, that does not mean that there is no right to use this kind of technique in your solo, and that this kind of technique maybe can expand the horizon in your expressive vocabulary. So it's definitely not worth to take a look at a technique like sweeping, or you don't have to take a look at a technique like sweeping. There are a lot of players out there who are really great, but they're not really sweeping, like Paul Gilbert, for example. Paul Gilbert is not really sweeping in the solos, and he's still an awesome guitar player. But what Paul Gilbert, certainly as far as I know, is not doing is saying, oh, sweeping, everybody is sweeping, it's only show off. It's complaining about a technique. How stupid it is to complain about a certain technique. Something that can help other guitar players to more express himself. The thing that he is recommending to everybody in this article. A little bit hypocritical. And then sweeping is easy, but it sounds incredibly hard. No, sweeping can be hard. Yes, you can sound extremely fast with sweeping, but try to make sweeps clean and tight. And by tight, I mean that every note has the same length. Currently, I'm recording a lot of sweeping for my Sweepertudes from the ZEN of Sweeping, my sweeping masterclass. And there I realized again how hard it is that every note in that arpeggio has the same length, that it's all tight and all really, it sounds like a PC, because then sweeping has a really cool effect and really cool sound. So it's not that easy, and to be honest, prove me wrong, Kirk. Prove me wrong that sweeping is easy by sweeping Serena from Jason Becker. I wish you a lot of fun. So, and then the last point. I know my modes, Hungarian scale, symmetrical scale, I know all that shit. Is it appropriate? Maybe early in our time, but not now. Okay, interesting take here. What's more appropriate is coming up with melodies that are more like vocal melodies. Where in the fucking world are your solos like vocal melodies? Where? Where in this music world is wow 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 a good vocal melody? It's not. It's not. You're not sounding like somebody who really taken awareness about how vocal melodies are structured, how the phrasing of a vocalist is, how the vibrato of somebody who is singing is really. I mean, it's a good exercise. It's a really good exercise to try to play with your guitar the vocal line of, I don't know, Mariah Carey's song or whatnot, and really trying to perfectly get that phrasing under your fingers. And there are players like Michael Wagner, for example, Fabian Ratzak, two of the greatest German guitar players right now. Or like I've mentioned, Marcus Volny, all these kind of guys, they have such a great phrasing in their guitar playing. This is a phrasing that has an awareness of how vocalists would make those phrases and would construct and play out those phrases, not the stuff that Kirk is doing in his solos. Again, listen to the solos and tell me that, oh wow, yeah, that's a melody that I would sing. I'm sorry, I'm getting I'm getting kind of in the mood here. And guess what? The best scale for mimicking vocal melodies is the pentatonic. Yes, that could be true. It's actually harder to say stuff with the pentatonic because you don't have that many notes. Well, it's an interesting take, especially to what I've said in the last video. There I described a little bit the problem with the pentatonic, and that you can make yourself a lot easier by deleting the two notes. You can create a tension in a certain chord progression, that you need a little bit more of awareness on what you are doing on your instrument, or what you are awareness about what you are writing on your solo about a certain chord progression than when you're playing the pentatonic. I hope this sentence had makes sense. And yes, limiting yourself in your tone choices is making things harder. Can make things harder, sorry. But sorry, this kind of awareness you don't again have in Kirk's solo, because what Kirk is playing are the same licks over and over and over again, and this is definitely not hard. He's making his life as a solo guitar playing, as a lead guitar player, a lot easier by using just the pentatonic. My battery died, but I was just in this kind of mood and I don't want to interrupt this mood by waiting 30 minutes till another battery has recharged. Yeah. Everything is a little bit spontaneous today, so this is why I'm going to make the end of the video with my iPhone. What I would love to hear more often from people like Kirk, and sometimes people from this community, is that there are more than just one emotion, and that other people can feel different when it comes to emotion. I give you an example. I love the song The Butcher by Rusty Cooley. This may sound for some people out there like just an exercise, or just simply noodling, or just simply trying to get an attention because he's playing fast there. For me, there's something that moves me. There's some sort of emotion. I can't really explain this kind of emotion, but it's totally fine that somebody else don't have this emotion, as long as these guys respect that maybe I get moved by listening to this kind of music and this kind of song. Why aren't we saying something like, hey, this style of music doesn't really move me, but it's totally fine if it moves you? Why do we have to say something like, it's not playing from your heart, and ooh, it's just sports and Olympics and all this kind of bullshit? Really bullshit. What you can do, and I'm really welcomed if people are doing this in my music as well, is being objectively criticizing. That means you know what you're saying and you make critique over a solo or a certain style with the awareness of what the people are doing there. So, and using the right terms for that. Like I said, dynamic is missing, maybe the execution of the technique is really not that good, maybe the variation is missing, maybe the energy, the tension, the build up, maybe the vocabulary could be a little bit more interesting by including more scales. These are terms how you can perfectly criticize the solo from another guitar player. But by saying just, oh, this don't feel like it is coming out of your heart and out of your moment, and this just sounds like sport or like an exercise or like a warm-up, it's too easy. It is too easy for me, and it is too much justifying their own behaviors. Because often people are saying something like this because they are jealous about the work, about the effort and the time, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. If it is totally fine if you haven't put that much effort and time in to develop a technique, or maybe to develop a different technique than other guitar players, but trying to downgrade those guitar players and bashing those guitar players with this bullshit is not acceptable, and we need to stop doing this in the guitar community. So much for this little rant about the stuff that Kirk is saying in the article. Please check out the video from Brandon the Eon and from Bradley Hall. They're really great videos. And if you want to support me, then hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment how you think about this article. And the next video I'm going to guarantee is going to be another lick lesson or another exercise Because yeah, this is what we want to do as a community. We want to get Kirk Hammett angry because we're only playing exercises because we want to improve on our instrument. I'm Mr. Homba, back from my practice cave. Cheers and stay progress. Bye.